At a museum, we see Dali, a cultured and graceful art researcher living in the Netherlands, who is dedicated to her work at the prestigious museum. Her boss berates her for spending too much time on work, as she has not eaten for a long time, and then forces Dali to go home and gives her an invitation to a party they have to attend the next day. Meanwhile, in Korea, we meet Jin Moo-hak, who's doing a food tasting event that is replete with cameos. Everyone seems to like the ultra-expensive and elite food that is being served, but Moo-hak practically flips tables. He firmly believes that his beloved gamjatang should be a cheap and filling meal that everyone can afford. He storms out angrily, and his assistant, Ms. Yo, follows him. It is obvious that Moo-hak did not grow up with money, as he dresses in exuberant outfits that reek of wealth, but lack taste. Soon his father calls him, asking why he sent 2 billion to an art gallery. He denies, and as his father asks to see him, he lies that he is already at the airport on his way to the Netherlands. Turns out it was his stepbrother who convinced him to loan the art gallery the money, explaining that it would help improve their status. Moo-hak boards a plane to the Netherlands, while his father angrily commands that all his credit cards be blocked. Back in the Netherlands, Dali's boss visits her and sends her to the airport to chaperone a famous Japanese art collector known as Mr. Jin to the party. At the airport, Moo-hak sees Dali holding a cardboard with Mr. Jin written on it, and he assumes she is there for him. He approaches her. Dali, who does not recognize who she is there to meet, thinks he is the one, and they leave together. On their way to the party, Moo-hak tells Dali that it is better to buy gamjatang than to waste money on a first-class ticket, and this makes her think that he is weird. At the party, Moo-hak is confused about the fuss, but he goes along with it until he is asked which painting he likes most. Moo-hak, however, passes over all the great works of art being displayed and focuses on the painting of a pig pen. He analyzes the painting in great, grotesque, pig-centric detail, and the crowd is left confused while Dali tries to cover up for him. As they continue to discuss, Moo-hak chokes on an olive pit as Dali tells him the price of a painting. She starts doing the Heimlich on him, and he soon throws out the pit, but it gets stuck in the painting, damaging it. Realizing the dire situation, the matron starts to panic, but Dali reveals that the painting is fake, and the woman throws them out. As Dali explains to Moo-hak that the painting is fake, they then realize that there has been a mix-up, and he is not the Mr. Jin she was supposed to take to the party. As they rush to the airport in search of the other Mr. Jin, Moo-hak complains that he has missed the real welcome party he is supposed to be at, and he might lose his 20 million contract. At the airport, they search for Mr. Jin, but he is nowhere to be found. Moo-hak reassures Dali that the man will be fine, and he is probably at a hotel resting already. Later, Moo-hak realizes his father has frozen his credit cards, and he has nowhere to stay. Dali lets him crash at her amazing home. Meanwhile, back in Korea, Moo-hak's stepbrother, Jin Ki-cheol, goes to visit Dali's father, Kim Nak-cheon, as he is the owner of the art museum they loaned the 2 billion. Ki-cheol is there to ask for a refund, but Nak-cheon excuses himself to attend to someone who has just entered the house. Nak-cheon confronts the person, and Ki-cheol peeps to listen to them, and he is later seen sitting on the floor and shaking in fear. Back in the Netherlands, Moo-hak thinks Dali is just staying with a wealthy friend and doesn't know she's a loaded chaebol at this point. He cooks dinner for her while she works, and the two have a sweet evening together that seems to suggest that there was some fate behind their meeting. Afterwards, Moo-hak is in the shower while Dali is in her bedroom struggling to take off her dress. Just then, there's a sudden brownout, during which a wet, naked, and towel-covered Moo-hak runs out in the pitch dark to make sure Dali is okay, only to fall flat on top of her as the lights come back on. The next day, Moo-hak gets the information that the other Mr. Jin is at the welcome party. He is supposed to be that, and he had a nice time there. Moo-hak says his staff is around, and he has to leave with them. Dali drives him to their location, and they seem a bit sorry to part, as Moo-hak has an impetuous moment and takes off his ultra-expensive gold watch and gives it to Dali, basically as insurance that they will meet again. As they part ways, he suddenly remembers that he does not have her contact info, and he runs after her. He sees her crying as she enters her car, and he tries to run after the car, but it is too late. After his meeting, Moo-hak roams around the city with his assistant, Ms. Yo, in search of Dali, but they are unable to find her, and Ms. Yo misleads him into thinking Dali tricked him and ran off with his watch. It turns out that Dali has returned to Seoul, as her father is dead. At the funeral, we meet Jang Tae-jin, and the staff of the museum wonder why he is there, as he is Dali. Dali ignores him, and as he leaves, he tells his assistant to look into the museum's financial situation. Meanwhile, in a brief flashback, we see Keol entering the room where Nakcheon lies unconscious, and he is visibly shaken. Muhak, who is also back in Korea, is sick, but he is more worried about catching Dao Li and getting his watch back. Ms. Yo visits him, and he asks if the private investigator he hired has been able to trace Dao Li. She says the investigator is still on it, and he tells her to promise the investigator more money if he is able to get her. This makes Ms. Yo ask him if he is really trying to find the watch or Dao Li, and in a defensive manner, Muhak yells that he is after his watch. Dao Li is dealing with her father's debts and the threat looming over her family's art museum. Many of his reliable business allies withdraw and refuse to assist Dao Li in saving Cheongsong Gallery. Even their family's trusted bank advises Dao Li to sell the art gallery rather than take on additional debt. Dao Li goes to the police station to see Ju Won-tak, a police officer whom Nakcheon had adopted when he was young. She is given his address information as he had not gone to work since Nakcheon's death, and she goes to visit him. Meanwhile, Ms. Yo drives Muhak around the city for some chores, and they pass by Dao Li a lot of times, but they do not notice each other. At Won-tak's house, it turns out that Muhak is Won-tak's landlord, as he bangs on the door asking for the rent while Dao Li is inside with Won-tak. Won-tak steps out to talk to Muhak, and as he leaves, he catches a glimpse of Dao Li, but he thinks he might just be projecting and leaves. The next day at work, Muhak's father, Jin Baek-won, yells at him, asking how he will get back the money from the museum as the owner is dead and there are a lot of debtors. Muhak reassures him that he will get the money back, but it is evident that he is not sure how he will go about doing that. He asks Ms. Yo to find out about the management of the museum, and she tells him Nakcheon's daughter will now be in control, but he is not reassured as he concludes that she is an incompetent and spoiled daughter. The next day at the museum, the staff wonder among themselves if they still have a job or if the museum will be sold, but Dao Li arrives and reassures them that she will be taking over as the director. Soon, Muhak, now a creditor, storms into the museum with a crew of tattooed enforcers and stages a protest on the gallery floor. But as Dao Li walks in, Muhak is stunned, and he tries to hide from her. Dao Li takes Muhak and a confused Ms. Yo to her office, and she tries to converse with Muhak, asking if his contract signing went well. But Muhak, who does not want Ms. Yo to realize that Dao Li is the lady with his watch, yells at Dao Li, saying she should stop acting like they are close, and the only relationship between them is that of a creditor and debtor. He goes on to say he does not care about the law and he will do anything to get his money. Dao Li replies that he is not on the list of debts that was written by the lawyer, but Muhak says he does not care about that, and he lent the museum money, which he intends to get back to the last penny. Muhak storms out of the office with a promise to set the place on fire if he is not paid, but Dao Li stops him and his goons from leaving the museum, saying they should purchase their tickets, and since they are more than 15 people, they will get a discount. After a tour in the museum, Muhak and his thugs leave, and on their way back, Ms. Yo tells Muhak that they can get their money from Jang Taijin, who is the heir of the Segi group, and Dao Li's fiancé. Hearing that Taijin is trying to get back on Dao Li's good side and may be willing to pay the museum debts, Muhak gets agitated. Dao Li searches her father's office, where she later finds a promissory note that her father had borrowed 2 billion from Dondon F&B, Muhak's company. Sabong explains that her father might have borrowed the money for the Basquiat exhibition. She goes on to say it is a very competitive exhibition and costs a fortune to hold. As Dao Li talks, apologizes for Muhak and his thugs' behavior, but Sabong says there is no need for that. She admits that she had thought Dao Li would close the museum, and she is glad she is now the director. Sabong then brings out lots of books on the list of artwork the museum owns, the list of artists the museum has worked with, and several others, saying she has a lot to catch up on. Meanwhile, a journalist leaks the photos of Muhak and his thugs disturbing the museum, and this immediately goes viral. Muhak, who is having lunch with Yeonwoo, who works at another museum, also talks about the viral images, and although she does not recognize Muhak as one of the thugs, she talks about how Cheongsong is nearing its end. Muhak asks what she means, and she explains that no one would want to go to a museum with gang members, and artists would not want their work to be exhibited there, which makes Muhak feel bad. Back at Cheongsong Museum, the creditors started calling, asking about the viral photos, and all the staff had to deflect them, promising that it meant nothing. After a long day of work, Dao Li runs into Muhak, and although he insists that he is not worried, he drives her to a store where he follows her around. They run into Taijin, and he tries to pay for Dao Li as they found out that her cards have been suspended, but Dao Li refuses and makes Muhak pay, promising to pay back later. In a flashback, we see a younger Dao Li running after Taijin in a heavy rain, In tears, she asks why he wants to call off their wedding, which is supposed to take place in a week. Acting indifferent, Taejin asks if she is ready to do anything he asks, and she quickly replies that she is prepared to do anything. But as she hears his request, she looks defeated, and he walks away in anger. Back to the present, Dali gets home and remembers several moments shared with her father, which makes her burst into tears. Meanwhile, Wontak stops Muhak on his way home. He asks what work he does, saying he saw him with thugs, and since he is a police officer, he cannot overlook that. The next morning, Ms. Yo gathers the thugs again in front of Muhak's house so they can go to the museum again. Muhak seems uninterested, and he gets even more worried as Ms. Yo informs him that she got a call from the bank that all the money in Cheongsong Museum's bank account has been seized. At the museum, instead of being agitated as the thugs arrive again, Dali and her staff arrange seats for them and educate them about the artworks. Soon, some creditors arrive, scattering the museum and demanding their money. Dali tries to stop them and tells her staff to call the police, but one of the men tries to hurt her. Muhak interferes, stopping the man. He announces that he is the new director and asks how much the museum owes them. Ms. Yo shows him a list of the debts, and he angrily says he can pay all the debts. In Dali's office, Muhak goes through the list of loans the Cheongsong Museum owes, and he is shocked. Dali comments that he must be joking for saying he is the new director, but Muhak corrects her, saying he is a man of few words, and he does not joke when it comes to money issues. Dali asks what gives him the right to become the director of the museum, and he reminds her that she had said she would do whatever he asks for, and that she would accept any type of repayment terms. At Dali's confused look, Muhak reassures her that he is only trying to make his money back and she can think of the situation as contingent management. Dali points out that the museum is not where one makes money, and he responds that if she does not like his plan, she should pay back the 2 billion won. Muhak leaves with his thugs while the museum staff rearrange the place. They talk among themselves, wondering if they will be paid their salary that month. Not knowing that Dali is listening to them, one of the staff, Ms. Na, says Dali should drop her pride and ask Taejin for help instead of losing the museum. As Na continues to badmouth Dali, one of the staff notices her and ushers her into the room. She then asks Sabong if they can cancel the Basquiat exhibition, which comes as a shock to the staff. She explains that it seems it is the only way to handle urgent matters, but Sabong insists that the exhibition is the only thing that attracts big audiences in Korea, and that will help them get sponsored by big companies. Sabong then advises Dali that they should meet with some patrons for help. We then get to meet Si-hyung, Dali's cousin, who is partying with his friends. They make fun of him, saying he is now poor and should not be allowed in their midst. They talk about how his own father gave up on him, and his uncle used to give him money, but his uncle is dead now. One of his friends says Si-hyung has been borrowing money from a man called Mr. Ha, who is a known gangster, and they all continue to make fun of Si-hyung, which eventually leads to a fight. They are later arrested, and Wontak informs Dali, who then goes to the police station to see Si-hyung. But Si-hyung is not interested in talking to her. He makes fun of her for thinking she is capable of being in charge of the museum and tells her to get lost and go back to where she came from. Meanwhile, Muhak is accosted by his father at his office for paying off the museum debts instead of collecting the money the museum owes them. As he is about to explain, his stepmother arrives with a painting of a duck in a pond for Muhak's office. She explains that she got the painting from a human cultural asset, and it will help increase the flow of money into the company. Muhak, who does not understand why she is being overly nice to him, says he does not need the painting, and she can hang it up in Gicheol's office. Gicheol also agrees, but his mother stops him and drags him out of Muhak's office. She secretly explains to him that the painting is to trap Muhak like the duck in the pond and subdue his energy. Muhak later has a lunch with his father, who advises him to get close to Dali so he can take over the museum. He goes on to mention that people are saying Dali is only book smart but naive in the real sense, and there are a lot of people eyeing the museum. But all these makes Muhak uncomfortable. The next day, he arrives at the museum and barges into a meeting where Dali and the staff are discussing an upcoming program. They all try to ignore him until he yells in anger as they mention that the program is completely free. Dali calls him into her office, explaining in anger that the Cheongsong art camp has been run across 2 generations of her family, and it is very important, as it is a means for underprivileged kids to experience art. Muhak then points out that he is not against them holding the program, but he is only confused about how she intends to pay for it. She explains that she is communicating with some patrons, but this only makes Muhak angrier, and he calls her a thief for trying to look good on someone else's money. Dali then promises that she will pay him his money within a week, and if she is unable to, she will do whatever he says. Dao Li asks Sabong if there are paintings that they can sell and about the museum's working capital, but Sabong replies that they do not have any capital and do not even have to pay for the staff's salary. This makes her worried, and they go around to different patrons, but it all turns out futile, as no one is willing to help. Later on, Moo Hawk goes to the coffee shop in the museum, which Si Young is in charge of. He is surprised that the place is empty, and when he questions the waitress, he finds out that the shop rarely has sales except from the employees of the museum, and Si Young rarely comes to work. Dao Li later meets Tai Jin at a restaurant, where he proposes that they should go back to how things were, and although she ignores him at first, at his insistence, she says she has heard him. She later gets home, but unknown to her, someone is sneaking out of the house. The next day, she sells the house and packs a few things to carry with her and stores the rest. She then goes to sell some goods at a shop where Moo Hawk was buying a suit and sees her. He follows her the whole day, and when she stops at a restaurant to eat and drink, he sees her crying, and he consoles her. He later takes Dao Li to a hotel to check in, but she doesn't have money to pay for the room and leaves through the back door. She returns to the museum to spend the night there, and it turns out that someone is in her office, going through her files in search of something. Dao Li notices something strange, and she is about to go in search. Meanwhile, the intruder is also prepared to attack with a knife, but Moo Hawk arrives in time, calling out her name. He queries her, asking why she came to the museum when he had dropped her at the hotel, thinking she would check in. She lies that she has some work to do to meet up with the upcoming programs. He points out that she could have done that at the hotel, and asks if she does not have enough money. Dao Li insists that she has, and he drags her suitcase with him, saying she is going back to the hotel. Back at the hotel, he checks her in and ensures she enters her room. But once Moo Hawk leaves, Dao Li, remembering Sabong's words that there are no funds to pay the staff's salary, asks for a refund and leaves again. This time, Dao Li does not go to the museum, but she goes to a cheap motel. She is way too gullible for her own good, as she takes the whole envelope with the money she has in front of the attendant at the motel. Since he saw the envelope, the motel's attendant enters Dao Li's room in the middle of the night to steal the money. Dao Li wakes up and fights him, but she ends up beaten and left lying on the floor unconscious, while the thief leaves with the money. The next day, Won-tak hears from a colleague that Cheongsong Museum is being sued, as they were unable to make their loan payments on time. This makes him worried, and he rushes to her house only to find out that it has been sold. He then receives a call from the hospital that Dao Li has been rushed to the emergency room. Won-tak gets to the hospital to see Dao Li being interrogated by the police with bruises all over her face. This makes him angry, and he even yells at the police officers asking what they have been doing to catch the man. After making sure Dao Li is all right, Won-tak gets angry with her for not calling him earlier, and they decide that from now on, Dao Li will stay with him. Later, Won-tak drives Dao Li to work, and she has bruises all over her body, which can be covered with clothes. But Dao Li also has bruises on her face, which she covers with sunglasses. Unfortunately, the sunglasses aren't allowing Dao Li to be able to read the documents well. When she arrives at the gallery, Moo Hawk is there and is ready for a meeting. He is with a business plan to save money at the museum. After the meeting, Moo Hawk wants to know more about the man who drove Dao Li to work. He didn't see that man's face, so Moo Hawk doesn't know it's his tenant. Still, he is jealous when Dao Li says she found a place to live with a male friend. Dao Li starts calling several people, hoping for a loan so she can pay the staff, but no one wants to help. Dao Li later has to announce to her employees that they won't get their paycheck. Of course, they don't believe she has no money to pay them, especially Gong Ju, who got upset with Dao Li. She accuses Dao Li of lying that she has no money to pay them when the clothes, sunglasses, bag, and shoes Dao Li is wearing that day are more expensive than the employees' rent for a couple of months and their living expenses, and after paying all that, they could save the rest of the money. Meanwhile, Ki-cheol shows Baek-won a map of the land surrounding the Cheongsong Museum. He explains that the land has been secretly bought by Sang-tae, a man who is a member of the National Assembly under another name. Ki-cheol explains that the restriction on the area will soon be lifted, and if they are able to secure the museum for themselves, they will be able to take part in the project. Baek-won insists that they do not have a chance, but Ki-cheol smirks, saying they will create the chance, but Baek-won has to keep it a secret. Ki-cheol exits Baek-won's office happily as he brings out a USB device. In a flashback, we see Ki-cheol recording when Nak-cheon was arguing with the intruders at his house. Meanwhile, Si-hyung accosts Na-gong-ju, asking if she was unable to get what he asked for. It turns out that Na-gong-ju was the one who broke into Dao Li's home and office, and she is helping Si-hyung as he searches for something Nakcheon had kept before his death. Moo-hak sees them as he comes to the museum in search of Dal-lee, but they ignore him. Dal-lee moves in with Won-tak, and although she is worried about his landlord, he reassures her, saying his lease is not due yet. He then gives her money, explaining that the police have been able to capture the motel attendant. This makes Dal-lee emotional, and she starts crying that she finally feels relieved as the day has been a tough one for her. Meanwhile, Tae-jin has sent his assistant to send gifts to Dal-lee, but he is unable to deliver the gifts as she no longer lives there. Tae-jin calls Dal-lee to hear from her, but he is unable to reach her, which makes him worried. The next day, a bad news about Dal-lee's incompetence and the fall of the gallery, and how she was spotted at a hotel with a man, was published. When Moo-hak sees the article and reads that Dal-lee was robbed, he rushes to the museum where he checks her hands and face and sees her bruises. This makes him furious that she put herself in danger, and he asks how she could be so careless with her life over money. Dal-lee angrily retorts, reminding him that he is one of the reasons she is in her current situation. She reminds him of how he brought thugs to her museum and followed around the city to make sure she is safe, just to ensure that she will be able to repay his money. Meanwhile, unknown to them, Tae-jin is outside her office, and he overhears their conversation. Moo-hak replies that he is glad she knows he is doing everything for money, and she should ensure she is taking good care of herself, as he will ensure he gets all his money back from her, and he leaves her office angrily. The staff talk about the issue, and Han Byung-se, who is a curator in the museum, says it has not been long since Dal-lee's father died, and it is an embarrassment that she was seen at a hotel with a man, whom they all fail to recognize as Moo-hak. Dal-lee overhears this but ignores him and asks Sabong about the drafts of the banner and the poster for the upcoming exhibition. She explains that she will be using the news to her advantage, and all that bad publicity is still publicity that can bring attention to the museum, so she wants to hold a press conference. At the press conference, she talks about the problems she has been facing with the museum ever since she became the director. She is then told to take off her glasses, and when she does, all the journalists see her bruises. Then she shows the recording of the surveillance cameras from the motel, and it is obvious that she went in there alone and was attacked and robbed. The journalist who posted the first news is accused of posting fake news, and everything Dal-lee wore at the press conference is being looked into. Her dress, her necklace, her earrings. It turns out that the necklace had the name of the next event that Dal-lee's gallery is hosting, and even her ring is connected to it. She was able to achieve this with the help of Tae-jin, and her dress was made after the poster for the event. While everyone is paying attention to the museum and Dal-lee's dress, Moo-hak can only think of the fact that she was robbed and hurt. He also discusses with Ms. Yo that something seems strange with the situation the museum is at the moment. He explains that it seems like someone is trying to ruin the museum, as they were doing fine before Nakcheon's death, but everything turns worse as soon as Dal-lee becomes the director. Meanwhile, Ki Cheol has a meeting with Sang-tae. It is obvious that Sang-tae is full of himself, and when he steps out to receive a call, it turns out that he is communicating with Si-hyung, asking when the museum will be closed down, and if he has been able to get what he was looking for at Nakcheon's house. At night, as he is about to eat dinner, Moo-hak is visibly worried about Dal-lee, and he wonders if she is doing fine. Meanwhile, Dal-lee, who is living above him in Won-tak's room, eats more food than she normally would. This makes Won-tak rest assured, and he apologizes for lying to her that they had caught the culprit when he is the owner of the money he has given her to pay her staff salary. The next day, at dawn, Moo-hak goes to the gallery, and he sees a room full of boxes and garbage, and cleans it up. During working hours, everyone is looking for something, as art products for the event went missing. Of course, Moo-hak gets angry at everyone until they check the surveillance cameras, and it turns out that the garbage that Moo-hak had stepped on and cleaned was the art product. Moo-hak tries to defend himself, and he insults the art object and the artist. But unknown to him, the artist, Hong Ja-young, was right behind him and heard everything. She leaves angrily, saying she will no longer be displaying her art at the museum, and she is disappointed in Dal-lee. Meanwhile, Tae-jin discusses with his assistant about how Dal-lee's appearance at the press conference is bringing in more sales. His assistant then tells him about Moo-hak and how he is the director at his restaurant. They continue to talk about other things when Chak-hwee, Sang-tae's daughter, suddenly barges in, saying she wants to see Tae-jin. As he agrees to see her, she asks why he terminated his contract with the gallery where she works. She asks if it is because of her father, but he insists that his decision has nothing to do with her father. She then asks if it involves Dal-lee, and she even goes on to encourage him to keep on trying to get her, as it will make her getting Muhawk easier. Dowley gets a call from the police station that the man who attacked and robbed her has been caught. Muhawk drives her there, but as Dowley goes inside, the attacker is screaming and making a scene. Wontok is about to beat up the attacker, but his co-workers stop him, and while everyone is busy holding Wontok, no one is there to stop Muhawk from hitting the attacker. The man goes on to say he should have killed Dowley. This makes Muhawk furious and he is about to punch the man, but Dowley holds him to stop him. Seeing that Dowley has stopped Muhawk, the man continues rambling until Dowley herself tells him his sentence to jail could be long or short, and that depends on what she says. She then asks about her money, and he confesses that he has spent it all. This makes her lose it, and she pounces on him, until Muhawk and Wontok hold her to stop her. Later on, while the police officer is addressing Dowley, Wontok and Muhawk question each other, asking how the other got to know Dowley. As Dowley arrives and Wontok explains that Muhawk is his landlord, Dowley quickly stops Wontok from mentioning that Dowley stays with him. On their way back to the museum, to Muhawk, it seems Wontok, his tenant, has the upper hand as he feels Wontok and Dowley seem really close. They talk informally with each other, and they are not shy about touching each other. Dowley doesn't explain what's her relationship with Wontok, but she brags about him, and that makes Muhawk even more jealous. Meanwhile, Taijin is also worried about how close Muhawk seems to Dowley, and he tells his assistant that he would like to meet Muhawk. Muhawk goes to apologize, and even kneels before Hong Jae-young, saying he is there to clean up his mess. Meanwhile, Dowley and Sabong also go to artist Hong Jae-young's studio to apologize for the insult Muhawk had brought her. But when they arrive, the artist jokes around with them, saying she would want Dowley to kneel before her. Dowley is about to do that, but Hong Jae-young stops her, saying she is only joking and she has already sent her work to the museum. Ms. Yo informs Muhawk that Taijin would like to meet with him, and she predicts that he may be doing that so he can pay the Cheongsong Museum debt. But this does not sit well with Muhawk, and he refuses to meet with Taijin. The next day, which is the day of the exhibition, the staff work hard to ensure that everything goes as planned. At first, it seems no one will be attending the exhibition, but soon, the VIP guests start trickling in, and the museum gets filled with people coming for the exhibition. Taijin is also at the exhibition, and he takes Dowley to meet people who can be potential sponsors for the museum. Muhawk also arrives for the exhibition, but he is shocked to see his family also there, and he says they should all act like strangers. Dowley keeps looking around for Muhawk even as Taijin takes her to meet several people, and when she finally sees him, she seems disappointed when she sees Chak Hui rushing to his side, fixing his tie. Taijin notices this, and when Muhawk finally sees Dowley, he tries to wave at her, but she ignores him, and Taijin also starts paying extra attention to her. Chak Hui later takes Muhawk to her father to introduce them, but Muhawk's family interrupts the moment. After a while, Taijin introduces himself to Muhawk, saying he had issues with Dowley in the past, and that was why he has not been able to sort the loans, but they are back together now, and he wants to pay off the 2 billion won loan. This makes Muhawk angry, and he refuses to accept the money from Taijin. He tells him to never underestimate Dowley's ability to take care of herself, and he leaves. Later on, Muhawk volunteers to lie in a coffin, which is one of Hong Jae-young's artworks, and he scares others who are looking at the artwork. But he sleeps off, and when Dowley is closing the museum after the exhibition, she sees him and wakes him up. They sit together, and when she asks if he was scared to stay in the coffin, he tells her that although he was scared at first, it was later comforting to him. Muhawk explains that his mother was sick for a long time, then she died on a cold day. Dowley then consoles and kisses him. The duo feels awkward after the kiss, but Muhawk still insists that he will take her to where she is staying. Dowley drives to Muhawk's house, and he asks how she knows where he lives. Luckily, Wontok steps out to throw trash, and Dowley uses the opportunity, saying Wontok will take her to her friend's house. Later at night, Wontok asks Dowley if Muhawk is threatening her, but she reassures him that the only relationship they have is as a creditor and debtor, and there is nothing between them. The next day at work, Muhawk joins the museum staff meeting with Dowley, and he keeps hearing the word kiss when they are saying something entirely different. After the meeting, he meets Dowley in her office, and she says they should forget about the kiss as it was a mistake, but he refuses, saying it was not a mistake for him, and she should think it over again. Later, Dowley gets home, and she checks if Muhawk is around first. As he is not around, she rushes home, but Taijin is there, in front of the building, waiting for her. Suddenly, Dowley hears Muhawk's voice, and since she doesn't want Muhawk to find out she is living with Wontok, Dowley pushes Taijin inside his car. She gets in Taijin's car and hides, Telling his assistant to drive off, Taijin explains that he wants to talk with Dali about some sponsorship, but he also wants to get back with her. He doesn't like that Dali lives with Won-tak and Muhak, and he takes Dali to the apartment they were supposed to live in after their marriage and tells her to use it. He explains that no one knows about that apartment except his assistant, but Dali refuses both the apartment and to get back with him, and she leaves without looking back. She wanders around until she gets to the police station, where she calls Won-tak to come see her. They talk about their family and how things don't last, and she makes him promise her that he will not leave anytime soon. Muhak's dad calls him over to eat with his family, and his father keeps talking about Muhak getting married. At the exhibition, Muhak's father saw the way Muhak and Dali were staring at each other. He realizes that Muhak likes Dali, and it's his way of approving of Muhak marrying Dali. After the meal, Muhak is about to leave when his stepbrother, Ki Cheol, says something that makes Muhak suspicious. He calls his assistant to look into Ki Cheol, and something is indeed suspicious, as they find out that Ki Cheol had bought some land around the Cheongsong Museum. Ms. Yo informs Muhak that the area started being sold and bought really fast after Dali's father died. Dali's father was against developing that area and fought against that for a long time. Another suspicious thing Ms. Yo found is that the VIP guests at the recent gallery event are people who bought land there. Meanwhile, Dali and Ms. Nagongju are at Dondon F&B holding a meeting with some of the staff when Dali gets a phone call from Sabong, who informs her that Muhak had paid a PR company, and the company had brought most of the celebrities and people who came to the exhibition. Dali storms into Muhak's office while he and Ms. Yo are still going through the map of the lands surrounding the museum. They quickly hide the map, and Dali asks if he really paid a PR company. Muhak argues that he did it so they can make more money, but Dali is not impressed, and she leaves. On the other hand, Si-hyung is being pursued by those he owes, and he runs to the cafe to take some money, but the attendant informs him that the ledger is now being monitored by Dali. He angrily storms into her office, scattering the room, and saying he should be in charge of the museum, and not her. Dali makes him leave after a while, and as she is arranging the office, she notices something strange in a box where her father used to keep sweets for her. After a hard day, Dali goes home, and the door is opened. She wonders if Won-tak is back, but as she enters, she sees that the house is a mess. She receives a call from Won-tak, who informs her that he will not be coming home that night. This makes her realize that someone else is in the house. She tries to turn on the light, but the person hits her and runs off. Soon, someone enters the house again, and Dali tries to attack, but it turns out to be Muhak. Muhak asks what Dali is doing there, and she explains that she thought the burglar had come back. He comforts her, seeing that she is panicking, and they call the police. Muhak later tells Dali that he does not think the police will be able to investigate anything, as nothing was stolen. He then tells her to come over to his place since Won-tak is not around, and he cannot allow her to sleep alone, as the door lock is broken. The burglar turns out to be Nagongju again, and she meets with Si-hyung, complaining that she can no longer help him as she almost got caught by Dali. It turns out that they are searching for something illegal that Nak Cheon had taken from Si-hyung before his death. Back at Muhak's apartment, he makes dinner while Dali watches him, and they later eat together. After dinner, Dali offers to wash the dishes, but that soon becomes a disaster, and she later suggests that she sleep in his bedroom while he sleeps in the living room. She explains that she does not want to be a bigger inconvenience by watching television while she spent the night there, and Muhak sarcastically replies that he is grateful. Later at night, Muhak, who is unable to sleep, remembers that when he got home, someone wearing black clothes, a mask, and a hat passed by him after he heard a woman screaming. He reasons that the person seems familiar to him, but he dismisses the idea. Dali has a nightmare, and Muhak has to force her awake, after which she starts crying saying she is not okay. She later apologizes saying she cannot reciprocate his feelings, and when he asks if it is because of Taijin, she explains that she is scared to love again. The next morning, Won-tak arrives home. As Muhak and Dali are stepping out of his apartment, they explain the situation to him, and he is obviously not pleased. As in a brief flashback, we see Won-tak complaining, when he was just about to rent the apartment, that the door lock is bad, but Muhak had insisted that they do not need to fix it. Back to the present, Muhak states the obvious that he is the rich owner of a franchise, but the thief went to the rooftop apartment. Dali's laptop and handbags are the only expensive things in Won-tak's apartment, but the thief left them behind like he was looking for something specific. He also says the thief seems to be a woman, and he tells Won-tak to think about the women who may be holding a grudge against him. While cleaning, Won-tak finds an earring that Dali recognizes as Gongju's. At work, Dali asks Sabong about Gongju's HR profile. Sabong explains that Dali's father had employed her personally, and when she told him that Gongju's education and experience were not real, he told her to keep it a secret between them. As the staff prepares for an event they will be hosting with Muhak for orphan children, Dali stares at Gongju and starts piecing several instances together, which helps her confirm that Gongju is the burglar. Taijin suddenly barges into the meeting, saying he will sponsor the event. He later admits to Dali that he is trying to get on her good side, but she stands firm, saying she is not interested in being with him again. Muhak's family invites Sangtai for a meal, and they overhear his call with someone saying they must find Si-hyung before he implicates them all. They all later discuss how they will overtake the museum from Dali, and he tells them to invest their money in a construction company where he will make more gain. Muhak's father is uncomfortable with the plan, but he has no choice but to go with it. On the day of the event for the children, Taejin looks uncomfortable as Dali and Muhak are way too friendly. Muhak even wins the children's love by playing with them and teaching them to cook. Muhak later meets Chai Hui, who suggests that she should have sex. This makes Muhak flustered, and he apologizes to her, saying he has feelings for someone else. Dali and Taijin have to sign some documents, and to try and put some distance between Muhak and Dali, Taijin takes Dali to Dondon F&B. Until Muhak arrives at work, his employees keep an eye on Dali and Taijin. While they are eating, Taijin tells Dali that Dondon F&B keeps buying the land around the gallery after her father died. He does all he can to manipulate Dali and turn Dali against Muhak. And just when Taijin is talking badly about his rival and is about to make Dali wonder whom she trusts, Muhak enters to bring them food. As Muhak prepares their meal, Taijin starts provoking him. He insults Muhak, humiliating him, but Muhak is curious, and he asks how Taijin knows of the thing happening in his company even before they are reported to him. And since Taijin is getting so worked up, it means Taijin is hiding something. Dali can't believe what Taijin said, and she keeps thinking of what Muhak has done, of his actions, ever since they've met. She calls Muhak, but he doesn't answer, and he even avoids her when his car passes by her. Muhak goes to his father's house to find more information about the new construction business. He argues with his family, but his father insists that the business will flourish once they are able to buy the museum. Muhak's father later admits to him that Sangtai is just an errand boy, and there is someone else in control, and Kichul knows who that person is. But this news seems suspicious to Muhak. When Muhak arrives home, Dali is waiting for him outside, and she wants to apologize for Taijin's behavior. But this makes Muhak more upset. He says he is more upset that Dali was with Taijin than what Taijin said to him to humiliate Muhak. Muhak says that from a young age, he worked hard to get where he is and had to go through worse humiliation than what Taijin said. Muhak and Dali argue that night. He is so upset that he insults Dali and she slaps him. She is about to slap him again when Muhak holds her hand and kisses her. Then Muhak tells Dali everything he found out about the construction business, the bought land around the gallery, and everything that people did to force Dali to close down the gallery. He explains that with the gallery gone, it will be easier for the people behind everything to redevelop that area. Dali finds drugs in the drawing tube filled with candies her father left for her. Meanwhile, Kichul goes to Muhak's office begging him to support him in getting the museum. Muhak ignores him, but he continues to beg, saying that's his big chance, and he needs Muhak's support. Kichul reminds Mokhak of how he quickly changed his surname when his mother married Muhak's father so he could be affiliated with the family, but Muhak is still not moved. Sabong takes Dali to the area where Gongju lives. As they see Gongju from a distance, Dali tells Sabong to leave as she has a meeting with some artists. Dali meets Gongju at her house, where she is fighting with a roommate. She takes her to a store where Gongju confesses that she had truly been snooping around wherever Dali is living. She says she wants to know how Dali is living, and she talks about how she could have been in Dali's position, as they were both chosen randomly. Her words seem to strike a chord in Dali, but before they can talk further, Won-tak and some other police officers arrive to arrest Gongju. It turns out that Dali had called Won-tak when she saw the drugs, and he came with another detective to confirm the drugs. It was after this that Dali went to seek Gongju. After the incident, Dali walks around in the rain, thinking about Gongju's words. Muhak sees her close to his office, and he runs to meet her, scolding her for standing in the rain, but she hugs him with hers in her eyes. He takes her to his office, where he comforts her and reminds her that he will help her protect the museum. Meanwhile, Gongju is at the police station, but she is refusing to say anything, which makes Won-tak angry, and it turns out that he knows more about her. He asks her if she knows that Nakcheon was the one who rescued her, but she refuses to accept that, and he reminds Gongju about how she used to work at a bar, taking care of men and doing what they wanted, all because of a debt she had. She wanted to kill herself to get out of that world, but when she was about to commit suicide, Gongju saw a news report about Dao Li's success in Europe. She went to the gallery, devastated and with makeup on her face, ruined from crying. Dao Li's father treated her with kindness and gave her a job. Also, without Gongju knowing, Dao Li's father asked Won-tak to help Gongju so she would be free from the loan. Hearing this makes Gongju sad, and she bursts into tears. But Won-tak leaves as he had gotten information about Si-hyung's whereabouts. The police get to Si-hyung, who is hiding in Busan, and call his father to help him. Meanwhile, Moo-hak's legal team builds a case against those buying the lands around the museum. Moo-hak gives the document to Ms. Yeo, saying she should personally hand it over to Dao Li. Ms. Yeo is confused, and she points out that they will be making a lot of profits if they are able to take over the land of the museum, but Moo-hak says he is doing that to protect his family and his company. Ms. Yeo gives Dao Li the document and lets her know that she does not support Moo-hak's decision to give her the document, but if Dao Li does anything to hurt Moo-hak, she will not take it easy with her. Dao Li publishes an article to talk about how Assemblyman Sang-tai is taking advantage of his position, gathering people around to buy the land surrounding the museum while waiting for a chance to take hold of the museum. This article goes viral, that Sang-tai had to leave while holding a press conference. It later turns out that Sang-tai is truly just an errand boy, and the one in charge of everything is Tai-jin. Back at home, Moo-hak and Dao Li share dinner, and they talk about the issues. After a while, Moo-hak suggests that Dao Li sleep in his apartment since Won-tak is not back from Busan. He promises that nothing will happen between them, and Dao Li asks why he wants her to sleep in his apartment if nothing will be happening between them. Moo-hak takes this as a green light, and he rushes to his apartment to make the place presentable and romantic. But in a quick turn of events, Cha-kwei suddenly arrives looking injured, and she asks if Dao Li is living with Moo-hak, but the duo can only stare at each other. Moo-hak asks Cha-kwei what happened to her face, but she refuses to reply and barges into his apartment, saying she will be staying there for a few days, leaving Moo-hak and Dao Li frustrated. Moo-hak continues to ask how she got injured, and she says she got into a fight at the grocery store, but Moo-hak does not seem to believe her. Dao Li suggests that Cha-kwei go home to her parents, pointing out that they may be worried, but Cha-kwei insists that she will be staying with Moo-hak until her wounds heal. Moo-hak ends up getting kicked out of his own house, as Dao Li will not let him stay in the same house with another woman. Dao Li spends the night with Cha-kwei, while Moo-hak has to sleep upstairs with Won-tak. Upstairs is only one room, and that's the room Dao Li is using. But Won-tak isn't letting Moo-hak sleep in that room even when Dao Li isn't home, and both men will sleep in the living room. Of course, Moo-hak didn't get a blanket or pillow. In the morning, Cha-kwei refuses to leave, but Moo-hak insists, and Cha-kwei tells him that her father, Assemblyman Sang-tai, beat her up. She overheard her father talking on the phone about Dao Li and Moo-hak, and they argued, which made him beat her up, saying she was useless to him. Won-tak warns Dao Li to be careful, especially now that she has published the article, as Sang-tai will definitely try to get back at her. Meanwhile, Sang-tai keeps Si-hyung in a room. He tells him that the police are looking for him because his drug stash, which Nakcheon had seized, and which is what he has been making Gongju search for, has been finally found by the police. Sang-tai then asks Si-hyung if he wants to silently disappear before the police catch up with him. As he leaves the house where Si-hyung is being kept, Sang-tai remembers his discussion with Tai-jin. He suggested a new plan to get the museum, but Tai-jin was against the plan as it would hurt Dao Li, but Sang-tai is able to convince him, saying he should take advantage of the opportunity to rescue Dao Li, and that will make her feel dependent on him. Back to the present, Bill storms into Moo-hak's office, asking why he betrayed him by giving Dao Li the document she published. Moo-hak denies saying he has nothing to do with it, but Ki-cheol continues to argue. Their father interferes and asks Moo-hak if he is truly not the one, and Moo-hak says it is probably Tai-jin, as he knows about all the plans. Ki-cheol continues to argue, but their father tells Moo-hak that if he finds out that he is the one who gave the files to Dao Li, he will cut him off. Moo-hak later tells Ms. Yeo to check if Sang-tai has been meeting with Tai-jin. Meanwhile, at the museum, Sabong and the other staff talk about the article Dao Li published. Han Byung-se insists that Dao Li should have sold the museum, as they can always build another at another location. He then says maybe Dao Li plans to marry Tai-jin and wants to make the museum one of his towers, but Hwang Gi-dong disagrees, and he says Dao Li seems to be more interested in Moo-hak. But Sabong and Byung-se laugh at this, saying it is impossible. Dali gets a call from the museum lawyer, Lawyer Cha, who informs her that she has been notified to pay the tax for the museum. As she stares at the huge amount of money, he tells her that she should not have published the article, as it now makes it harder to get a loan from the bank, and if they are unable to pay, the museum might be auctioned. Meanwhile, Sang-tae men change Si-hyung's appearance to make it easier for him to leave the country. At the same time, his father, who is also Dali's uncle, Kim Hong-chun, returns to the country. A journalist recognizes him and provokes him so that Kim Hong-chun will give an interview. And he did. Kim Hong-chun says Dali can't be the heiress of the gallery since she was adopted. Sang-tae sees this news and he is beyond glad that, as he believes that it will be easier to get the museum. But Tae-jin is not impressed, and he orders Sang-tae to send Si-hyung back to where he is being kept. Meanwhile, at the museum, Dali is busy with Sabong as they go through the artworks, looking for what they can sell to pay the tax. As they are loading the artworks into a van, Hong-chun arrives and causes a scene, asking why Dali, who is not a biological child, would think she can decide to sell things in the museum. In Dali's office, Hong-chun accuses Dali of all the bad things that happened in his family because his brother adopted Dali. He blames Dali for his sister-in-law's death, for him and his brother distancing each other, for losing their assets, and he storms out of the office, saying she should resign. Her secret being revealed brings back painful memories to Dali. She remembers how Tae-jin had broken up with her a few days before their wedding because he found out Dali was adopted. Won-tak hears the news from a colleague, and he anxiously calls Dali, but she is not picking up her call. Tae-jin also goes to the museum, which is now filled with reporters, but his assistant informs him that Dali is not in the museum and she left her phone behind. Meanwhile, Dali goes to visit her father at his grave. Sitting there, she remembers how she first got to meet him as a kid in the orphanage home. Moo-hak also learns from Ms. Yo about the news circulating that Dali is adopted. After a long day of searching for Dali, Tae-jin tells his assistant that they should go to the museum once again. At the museum, Dali sits in her office, looking worn out and not interested in replying to her messages. Moo-hak soon arrives, calling out her name and searching for her, but she hides from him. As he leaves to look around the building, she steps out to meet him, and he asks if she is hiding from him in anger. Moo-hak explains that Chak-hwee is just a friend, and he cannot throw her out of the house in her current situation. Dali asks if he has not seen the news, and he says she should not be worried about the inheritance issues, as she is still Nakcheon's daughter. Dali says she is talking about the fact that she is adopted, but Moo-hak is not worried about that. He points out that his brother is not blood-related, but that does not make him less of his brother. He then scolds her for not picking up his call just because of that. He gives her different scenarios to prove that being blood-related doesn't mean family, and he says he sort of already knew, as she does not look like her late father and mother. This makes Dali feel relieved, and she bursts into tears, hugging him. Tae-jin, who is still searching for Dali, sees them hugging, and Moo-hak consoling her. He then calls Sang-tae and tells him to continue with their plan. The next day at the museum, the staff holds a meeting with Dali, Moo-hak, and Ms. Yo. Dali and her staff are so happy that the museum started making a lot of profit after the exhibition, and even the cafe is getting popular. But Moo-hak is not impressed. He points out that the profit they made is not even up to the amount they used in funding the exhibition. Sabong tries to explain that a museum is not much of a lucrative business, and this is the first time they are making that large amount of profit. But Moo-hak is still not impressed, and this leads to a fight between the two. Dali storms into her office, and Ms. Yo advises Moo-hak to follow her. In her office, he apologizes to her and promises to apologize to Sabong. As they share a kiss, the others barge into the office to apologize, and Dali yells at Moo-hak to cover up the fact that they were kissing. After the apologies, Byung-se suggests that they should have a get-together, and they all go to one of Moo-hak's restaurants. As they are eating, they hear the news that Kim Si-hyung, as he was instructed, holds a press conference and accuses Kim Nak-chun of being a drug addict who used the gallery to smuggle drugs. He even brings to the police a video of his uncle holding a drug bag from a painting. During that time, Tae-jin goes to see Hong-chun with the same video incriminating Nak-chun, but Hong-chun refuses to believe in that video, as he knows his brother couldn't have been a drug addict who smuggles drugs. Tae-jin then uses other so-called evidence to manipulate Hong-chun. Meanwhile, Assemblyman An Sang-tae approaches Sabong and Byung-se. He says they will get what they want, a great job and a great asylum for Sabong's sick mother, or scholarships for their children to study abroad. He says he will help them with that, but these offers come with a prize. The next day, the The police go to the museum to search and seize the artworks. Wontak is against this, but there is nothing he can do to stop it. Sabong and Byung-se do not show up to work, leaving Dal-lee and Gi-dong to attend to the artists who rush to take their works from there. They refuse to tie their names and artworks to a gallery where drugs were smuggled, but the police also arrive at the museum and start packing everything. While Dal-lee and Gi-dong look defeated, Assemblyman An Sang-tae refuses now to make any deal with Ki-cheol, Moo-hak's stepbrother. Because her son is in pain, Moo-hak's stepmother rushes to Dal-lee's office, where she throws herself on Dal-lee and beats her up until Tae-jin stops her. Later, Tae-jin goes to Moo-hak's office and tells him everything, which makes Moo-hak rush home to talk with his stepmother. They end up arguing, and Moo-hak's father intervenes. He slaps Moo-hak to defend his wife. Moo-hak then decides that he can't try to understand his father anymore, and they should each live their lives. For years, since his mother died, Moo-hak has tried to understand his father for abandoning him and his sick mother. While Moo-hak was taking care of his sick mother in the hospital, Moo-hak's father was enjoying his love with his actual wife, which he did not understand until he fell in love himself. But now, he is done making excuses for his father. At the same time, Dal-lee is meeting her uncle. After his conversation with Tae-jin, Hong-chun calls Dal-lee. He says he will give up his lawsuit to get Nok-chun's inheritance from Dal-lee, and he now wants Dal-lee as part of the family. He who has never accepted an adoptee as his niece. Turns out that Hong-chun wants Dal-lee to marry Tae-jin to save their family reputation, which his own son is destroying at Jung Tae-jin's command. Sabong and Byung-se thought about Sang-tae's offers and decided not to do any deal. They go to the police station separately, but they meet there, and they tell Won-tak and Detective Jung everything. Assemblyman An offered them great jobs, school abroad, and payment for a sanatorium in exchange for saying what he wanted. He checked their phones as soon as they met and also used a burner phone to contact them. Won-tak shows them the video incrimination Kim Nok-chun, but they do not believe their eyes and mention something that catches Won-tak's attention. While they are giving their testimony, Gong-ju arrives. She knows a lot more and is willing to tell everything. She reveals everything Si-hyung blackmailed her to do, as she says Si-hyung would tell her to take paintings from the gallery and switch them with fake ones. But the day before Kim Nok-chun died, Kim Si-hyung told Gong-ju to put a real painting back. It was the same painting with drugs in it, and Si-hyung did that so he could film his uncle and accuse him of smuggling drugs. The next morning, Moo-hak prepares breakfast for Dal-lee after being ignored the previous night, but when he goes upstairs to give it to her, she is already on her way to work. Tae-jin arrives to drive Dal-lee to work, but Moo-hak tries to stop her, saying she should go with him and he has already made breakfast for them. But Dal-lee refuses and tells him they should talk later before leaving with Tae-jin. They go to Tae-jin's office, and he tells her about everything he has prepared for her: a new job, a new exhibition, a new lawyer, and a new life by his side. Tae-jin is sure Dal-lee will accept it. Dal-lee gets to the museum and sees Sabong and Byung-se back at work. They apologize to her and tell her everything they found out at the police station. Dal-lee also tells them they will have to pass the Basquiat exhibition to another museum, as it is just too much for them to handle, and they need to pay off their loans. She says they will no longer be working with Dondon, and some Dondon chefs overhear this as they just got to the museum. Moo-hak, on the other hand, looks absolutely dejected, so Ms. Yeo had to forcefully take him to a restaurant to eat, but he storms off as her words of encouragement start to strike close to home. Moo-hak hears his chefs talking at the restaurant about Tae-jin buying a ring for Dal-lee. Furious, Moo-hak runs to the museum, asking Dal-lee in the presence of her staff if that is how she wants to end things with him. Dal-lee informs him that she will be selling the artworks to be able to afford his loan, but he angrily tells her he is not in a rush to get his money. At the police station, Won-tak and a detective reason about Si-hyung, and they decide to look for him. They go to his apartment, and he runs off as he sees them. Meanwhile, Dal-lee is on her way to meet an artist. As she stands in the bus, she remembers Tae-jin asking her to marry him. When she refuses, saying she is in love with another, he threatens her that no matter what happens, no matter what he will have to do or whom he will have to destroy in the process, Dal-lee will marry him. At night, Won-tak calls Moo-hak to check on Dal-lee. He explains that he tried to reach her, but Dal-lee's phone is turned off. Won-tak is worried about Dal-lee because Kim Si-hyung is on the run. Moo-hak calls Sabong, who then calls the artist. The artist informs her that Dal-lee has not gotten to her, which makes Moo-hak panic, and he quickly drives to go there. It turns out that Dal-lee has fallen asleep on the bus and missed her meeting with the artist. The driver wakes her up at the end of his route, but it is the middle of the night, and she is in the middle of nowhere without a phone battery. She sits with no option of what to do until Moo-hak arrives and hugs her. He begs her, saying she should not leave him as he loves her. Dao Li replies that she loves him too, and they share a kiss. Dao Li and Muhak finally get to the artist, and Dao Li reassures her that the museum will manage her exhibition, and the artist agrees. After spending the night together, Muhak prepares breakfast for Dao Li the next morning, and while they are eating, he tells her that he met her father before his death. In a flashback, we see Muhak visiting the museum for the first time and complaining that the museum does not know how to do business. Nakcheon hears this and invites him to his office. They talk for a while, and Muhak says he will loan him the money, but he must pay the interest on time. As Muhak is about to leave, Nakcheon suggests that he introduce his daughter to Muhak, but Muhak, thinking that the daughter will look like Nakcheon, politely refuses. Si-hyung, who is on the run, does not have any place to hide, and the police are chasing him. The only person he can ask for help is Taijin, and he approaches Taijin and asks for help to leave the country. But Taijin refuses. Taijin tells him to turn himself in, go to prison, and when Si-hyung is out, he will compensate him. Taijin points out that even if Si-hyung confesses about what happened the night Kim Nak-chun died, no one will believe the words of a drug addict over him. Meanwhile, Won-tak and some police officers go to Sang-tai's house to arrest him for interrogation concerning the drug found in the Cheongsong Museum. Sang-tai refuses to go with them and pretends to call their boss before leaving with Chak-hui. Ki-cheol and his mother watch from a distance as they had gone to Sang-tai's house to get Taijin's number. Muhak, on the other hand, cannot control himself, and it becomes so obvious to his staff that he and Dao Li are now dating. He sends several texts to Dao Li, who is in a meeting with her staff, and he later calls as she does not reply. Si-hyung meets his father at a park, and Hong-chun gives him some money. As Si-hyung turns to leave, his father begs him to turn himself in to the police, but Si-hyung says it is too late, and Nakcheon died because of him. Hong-chun asks him what he means by that, but he turns to leave, and the police arrive to arrest him. Later at night, Muhak buys dinner for Dao Li, not knowing that Won-tak is at home. Won-tak becomes suspicious, and he starts asking questions. Dao Li admits that they are dating, but Won-tak is shocked as he doesn't understand the attraction between them. To get himself away from all scandals, Taijin made it like Assemblyman An Sang-tai and Muhak's family were doing illegal business. So Muhak's company is searched and seized, and the news says that Don F and B bribed Assemblyman An for redevelopment deals. While the news is trending, Dao Li is with Chak-hui at the gallery. Chak-hui advises Dao Li not to marry Jiang Taijin, saying he isn't as nice as Dao Li believes. Then, as they find out about the news of what happened to Don, Chak-hui mentions that Jiang Taijin must be behind all of that. Chak-hui explains that she overheard things while being around her father, and it seems her father and Taijin did some business together. Every time he has an issue, Assemblyman An always calls Taijin, but now Taijin isn't answering anymore. Dao Li goes to Taijin, knowing he is the one destroying Don because Muhak is the man Dao Li likes. He seems confident, denying all involvement. But suddenly, someone calls him. It's Ki-cheol who sends Taijin a video. It's the video filmed the night Kim Nak-chun died. Taijin plays the video, and Dao Li recognizes her father's voice. Dao Li leaves Taijin's office, but she is still confused as she believes she heard her father's voice. But Taijin tells her that she is mistaken and she needs to leave as he is busy. As Dao Li leaves, Taijin calls Ki-cheol, who introduces himself and tells Taijin that it is obvious from the video that he is involved in Nakcheon's death. And if he wants to destroy Don, the video will be released to the public. Muhak hears his brother mentioning Taijin's name, but he doesn't know what happened, and Ki-cheol refuses to tell him anything. Back at Taijin's office, he angrily scatters everything until his assistant rushes into the room. He tells his assistant to find out everything possible about Ki-cheol, and he should call back the prosecutors to stop investigating Don. Meanwhile, Dao Li is still confused about the voice she heard at Taijin's office. She remembers several times during the conversation when it should have been obvious to her that Taijin had been involved from the start. Sabong interrupts her to talk about the artwork they are selling and their upcoming exhibition, and Dao Li asks if she knows Gongju's whereabouts. Dao Li goes to see Gongju, where she is working, and she gives her lawyer Cha's card so she can contact him to help in her case. Dao Li also commends Gongju, saying her absence is felt at the office, and she hopes she can summon her courage to come back to work. Later that night, Dao Li cooks for Muhak and Won-tak, the two men in her life. Muhak had taught her how to cook, but she felt the dish needed a personal touch. So while Dao Li cooks, Muhak and Won-tak struggle to eat the horrible dish. They pretend it's good not to hurt Dao Li's feelings, but unfortunately for them, because of their encouragement, Dao Li keeps cooking, and they have to keep forcing it down. After dinner, Dali tells Wontok and Muhak what happened earlier at Taijin's office, that someone sent Taijin a video of something, and when he started the video, she heard her father's voice. This makes Muhak remember that at the time, Dali said someone called Taijin regarding that video. Muhak heard his brother talking on the phone with Taijin. Then Muhak reveals something else. The day he went on his business trip to the Netherlands, Muhak was supposed to meet Dali's father. He couldn't go, so Muhak asked Ki-chul to meet Kim Nak-cheon. Although Ki-chul insists he never went and never met Nak-cheon, Muhak suspects Ki-chul saw something that night and is using what he saw to threaten Taijin. Wontok also says he heard Si-hyung saying he is the cause of Nak-cheon's death when they were about to arrest him. The next day, Dali goes to see Si-hyung in prison, and he tells Dali how everything started. Sangtae went to see her father and offered him a lot of money for the land where the gallery is. Sangtae wanted to demolish everything and rebuild a new city. Of course, Dali's father refused, and because Kim Nak-chun wasn't easy to convince, the next target was Si-hyung. Sangtae threatened to reveal his drug addiction if Si-hyung didn't do as he wanted. Scared, Si-hyung fell into that trap. And that is when the video with Nam-chong holding a drug bag was made. Still, Nak-cheon didn't give in. He advised Si-hyung to pay for his wrongdoings and start a new life. But that is when Taijin came in and threatened Nak-cheon. While Taijin was threatening him, Nak-cheon felt pain in his heart. But since Kim Nak-chun was hard to convince, Taijin didn't allow Si-hyung to give his uncle the medicine. As a result, Kim Nak-chun died. But that night, Ki-chul was in the other room. He heard and recorded everything that happened. Now Ki-chul is meeting Taijin. He wants something from Taijin in return for the video. He didn't get what he wanted, but it was close. So Ki-chul gave Taijin his phone to delete the recording. Of course, Taijin plays on another level. He came to the meeting to make sure he would get rid of all evidence against him. He met Ki-chul that night, but Taijin's plan is the only one of them to leave alive from that meeting, and he believes he will be the one leaving alive. Taijin's gangsters are on standby close by, and they are waiting for Taijin's order to attack Ki-chul. But when they attack Ki-chul, Muhak shows up. He had followed Ki-chul, and the gangsters were followed by Wontok and another detective. But during the fight that night, Muhak got hurt. Muhak is rushed to the hospital, and immediately the surgery starts. Ki-chul informs his parents, and they rush over. He blames himself for Muhak's condition, and his father is in pain for Muhak. But when Dali arrives, Muhak's father gets mad at her. First, he blames Dali for Muhak's injury, saying only if Dali had not appeared in Muhak's life, then Muhak would never have met Jang Taijin. Then Muhak's father kneels and begs Dali to disappear from Muhak's life. Once Muhak is out of surgery, Ki-chul releases the recording of the night Kim Nak-chun died online. Muhak wakes up, and when his family leaves, he calls Dali with the help of Ms. Yo. On her way, Taijin stops her. Still brazen as ever, he tells her he meant all his words and act, but Dali is not moved, and she leaves to meet Muhak. After spending the night with Muhak at the hospital, Dali wakes early the next morning to leave, but as she is leaving, Dali meets Muhak's father. He insists that Dali should break up with Muhak. He explains that he cannot look at Dali knowing that his son, Ki-chul, filmed what happened the night Dali's father died, and instead of doing something about it, Ki-chul used the video to make a deal with Jang Taijin. A year later, Muhak's father has been living with him, but Muhak is tired, and he tells his father to forgive himself and go to look for Ki-chul and his mother. Won-tak has also moved out of the rooftop apartment, and Chak-hui now lives there while she works for Dali. Muhak's father finally goes to see Ki-chul's mom, and they reconcile. Meanwhile, Muhak is mad at Dali for ignoring him while she is in contact with her staff. Dali has to travel to the Netherlands for work, and when she gets back, she goes to eat with her staff at one of Don's restaurants. Muhak happens to come to the same restaurant, and it is obvious that the two miss each other, but they still avoid each other. Dali had also moved in with Gongju, who tells her to call Muhak, but she refuses. The next day, Muhak and Ms. Yo go to the museum, and Muhak barges into their meeting just to be noticed by Dali. They later step out to talk, and Sabong asks Gongju what caused their fight. It turns out that Dali had told Muhak that she would be traveling to the Netherlands for work when they were supposed to go on a vacation trip, but that was just a week ago. As the staff peeps from a distance, Muhak proposes to Dali, and she accepts. If you enjoyed this recap, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and see you next time.